between us, we have, and I hate saying this because I feel old, Arthur, but I'm not nearly as old as you.
Well, speak for yourself, Kylie. I'm not sure.
But I know, but decades of experience in leadership, business growth, and productivity. And each month we get to sit down with amazing humans and have real conversations about what actually works, what they're finding works, and what people get wrong. Right. And whether that you're leading a team, whether you're leading a business or even leading yourself, then one of the things that we aim for in each of these podcasts is to provide some practical insights, some amazing guests, so that you can take away and learn some of the things that we've talked about in today's episode. And for this episode, I'm excited to have Jackie Clark here. Jackie is the Director of Education Engagement and Events at Colonial First State. She's been in the role for over 7 years. Jackie, you have extensive experience in financial services, but you've also got extensive experience in education, and it's kind of like you've blended the two together in this role.
Yeah, I often refer to it as the perfect role. So
Yeah.
the education component is something I'm particularly passionate about. But
Yeah.
coming back into financial services minus playground duty and doing marking homework is, it's just very much a step up, and certainly love being back in something that I'm really passionate about in terms of helping Australians with their achieve their financial goals.
And one of the things that I know that, Arthur, you are extremely passionate about, especially in your organisation, is financial literacy and education, right?
Yes.
So that's why I'm excited to have Jackie here to actually, and we were just talking before we went live, you guys have never met.
No.
No, I've never had the privilege. I'm sure Jackie may have been at a conference or something like that in the past, but pleasure to meet Jackie for the first time and great to be presenting with her today.
Kylie, there's an inference there about age, but I'm not entering into that conversation. I'll leave it to you and Arthur. So, yes.
We call it depth of experience, right?
I like that. That's much better terminology.
So I'm really looking forward, Jackie, to have a chat with you today because I want to unpack some insights that you have gathered from over 11,000 Australians on how people really make decisions. And I don't even think this is just relevant for financial advisors. If you're leading people or clients or conversations that influence behavior, whether or not it's a financial planning practice or whether or not it's a business, or even if you're leading a team, okay, we assume, I think, sometimes that we know what drives people and our clients. But research shows that there's actually a gap between what we think matters and what actually does. And I'm really keen to explore some of those things that you uncovered through that research you did, because I'm pretty passionate about that from a behavioural psychology perspective. So why do clients say one thing but actually decide based on something different?
Well, I think that there's a variety of different reasons, but even before we get to that, I'd sort of say that, and Arthur, you can probably concur here, that as an industry, we've been pushed down this road in terms of compliance and making sure we're ticking boxes and crossing T's and dotting I's, etc. And so we've had this real focus on being technicians. And what the legislation and law doesn't allow for is that we're emotional people, and all of us come with our own experiences, our own biases to a conversation, whether it was a financial planner or in the work environment. And you can't sort of legislate against for that. You can't actually put into a financial plan and into an SOA the emotional aspect of the clients who come in front of us. And that's essentially what are the drivers when a client is making a decision. And it's not rational. It's all those past experiences. It's that the history that brings them in front of you, and that a really good financial planner will unpack and try and sort of delve through a series of different sorts of questioning techniques to understand those biases, understand those attitudes. Because if we all made decisions on logic, one, it'd be a pretty boring old world, but two, we just know that, I could give someone a spreadsheet and yes, they'd act on it, but that's not what happens. So
Yeah, and it's also the biases, right? Like
Yes,
if you try to think about
100%.
logic, our biases come into that equation unintendedly in most cases, but it's the bias that also is a big factor. Sorry to cut you off there, but
No, no,
yeah,
you're 100% right. Bias on both sides,
yeah,
and it's being consciously aware of those biases when you come to a conversation. We often talk about clients who or advisors who know they can deliver a particular strategy in a certain way that works probably 90% of the time, but there's 10% of those clients who they just don't get it when you present that SOA in a particular format. That's because we have those biases. We come with different experiences. We come with different learning preferences. That means that we will react differently. So I think for me, it's very much about what we saw in this research was that clients, the emotional drivers are the key decision makers rather than the rational ones.
Yeah.
And we saw that through a range of questions that I'm sure we'll unpack as we go on, Kylie.
So it's interesting because I remember learning many years ago. I love frameworks. I think frameworks give structure and it gives order to people. And I remember learning a framework around the psychology of decision making. Okay. And it's been around for a long time. And it says clients will make decisions based on emotions, based on dominance. So emotions is for, if we think about it from financial services, it could be peace of mind, it could be safety, things like that. Then dominant, okay, which is all about fear, like what happens if I don't do something? What if I lose all my money, or what if I don't have the retirement that I want? But then there's logical, right? That logical, of course, it makes sense. Why would I not do that? So what I've found with that framework is that it's not just they'll make it based on one of those, they'll have a blend of those, but they'll have a preference, okay, for that driver of I'm more emotional, therefore I'm going to make it based on that, or I'm more fear-based, I'm going to make it based on that. Did that come out in your research as well? Was it as clear-cut as that, or was there another framework that came up in your research that said actually they are the three drivers, but we called them something different or something like that?
Yeah, look, we did see elements. There wasn't certainly, it didn't come out as cleanly as a framework as such, but essentially language was really key in terms of the decision-making process. So, and that would be around the logical and the emotional. So actually, we're imparting the same information, but how we articulate that to clients and how we leverage or use language that basically is going to appeal to that emotional side. So a classic would be around, and you mentioned it before, around fear, that if I sat there and said to a client, you're going to need $200,000 to retire, you need that amount. It's factual. It's underdone. It's probably closer to 300,000 or 400,000. But that's not really connecting to what their real concern is. Their real concern in the research that we did was, I'm scared, I'm worried that I don't have enough money in retirement, and that even though you might be telling me it's 400,000, I need to trust you that that is actually right. What evidence can you show me that that is actually right? What stories or what history can you share other clients where that has been right? So two things have come out of there. I need to have that confidence. I do have some fear around I'm going to run out of money, and I need you to support my decision making with evidence, but not numbers. I need that stories. I need that reinforcement that that other clients, that experience that you're telling me is right.
Yes.
Arthur, something similar? You're nodding there, I can see.
Yes, I'll just take myself off mute. Yeah, I was just walking through that that line of thinking, and I was actually reflecting on numbers versus stories. And so implicitly, when I was thinking about what you were saying, it's always a good opportunity to actually notice how you do things and then understand probably why. And the why is obviously, over time, you do things a certain way because it's the most successful way to do things. I was just trying to peel it back and go, why do I do that? Like, why do I introduce a story? Why do I, when I'm talking to a client, and in my advisor capacity, I always will use stories. I always will use examples of other clients. I'll even share personal stories. And now when you play it through, they're so much more powerful. Depending on, I'd say I guess the profile of person that you may have in front of you. Definitely for if you were to use personality types, if you were to just take stock and think about who you have in front of you in terms of their receptiveness to the messaging that you're sending. And so someone that is, an I or an S would definitely warm to story and examples of others that rather kind of follow what others are doing because they fear maybe being left behind or not part of. Maybe a C type, you probably err towards more the numbers and keep it non-personal as much as possible. They may not respond in the same manner. But even D types, I'd say that a certain D type would actually warm to story, high level, not too deep. But if you look at those three personality types, I can definitely see how story and examples and case, it's very, very effective way. I think at the end of the day, people also look for your own judgment. And so when they're asking questions, the intrinsic value of what I believe they're also looking for is not only your experience, your credibility, how you've helped others, but really what they're buying is your judgment, how you will interpret their needs, what you will listen for, and how then you compute that and then offer your human, and I'm saying human, and you know where I'm going with this, your human judgment versus any other tool that may not be human providing its judgment.
Yeah, and I think you've nailed that. It's your understanding of the circumstances. Like we all can provide the spreadsheet, we can all provide the technical expertise, but actually understanding their drivers and being able to connect with them. Clients don't walk in the door going, I need you to help me, Arthur, build up my confidence. They come in saying, I need you to help me plan for my retirement and make sure I've build me a strategy that's going to make sure I've got enough money. But really what's underpinning that comment is I lack confidence. I lack confidence to do it myself. I lack confidence in that I think I've got enough money to retire on. I need that reassurance from you. They're never going to say that. What they're looking for is an advisor who intuitively understands the emotional drivers as well to connect with those fears, those concerns.
I have a story I might just add, and look, I'm not here to tell everyone how to do things or what I think is right for them. I've worked out what's right for me. I did have a client last week, a couple, where the female spouse basically said, my husband needs someone to tell him that we're going to have enough money to retire. So she's come out and said it. So that was pretty clear. So, but actually, I've got a client coming in today. And the story there was it kind of reminded me why I'm very passionate about our industry and the difference it can make to people. Not necessarily just about the results financially, but the core emotions that you summarized before, Kylie, is about feeling secure, feeling safe, overcoming fear. I had this client who comes in with her son. She's a widow, and she's been a client of ours even when her husband was still with her. And unfortunately, during our servicing, he passed, and we've continued on the relationship, but she comes in with her son for support. And in the last interaction I had, it was quite an interesting one where we just delved into talking about longer term residence, care, all these factors, the age of fragility. And with that comes a lot of emotions, right? Like you're living in a home where you spent pretty much your whole entire married life with your husband, you raise your children. And so this topic is, how do you kind of correctly, not pushed too far in, but you still need to have a concern and kind of draw out those conversations with your client and so forth. But what I could actually see and listen for in that conversation was a sense of a lack of self-worth. And so what she was going through was, she was talking about what she does with her time. And I said, well, tell us, what do you like doing? How do you want to spend your time? And I used to do this. I used to volunteer, and I said, well, why used to? Why haven't you continued? And it was all these starts and stops. And what I really drew it back to was a sense of worth. And her sense of worth was in the house. And she was connected to the house because that's where her sense of worth was. And that's why she couldn't move, because she had that challenge. I didn't outwardly say it, that I think this is the issue, but I kind of just moved and massaged around it. And she kind of turned and looked at her son, and she goes, well, this is not a financial planning, this is a therapy session. And I said, well, sure, there's a couch over there. Let's take a lie down. But in the end, the amazing part of the story is, and I'd love to share this with you, Jackie and Kylie, is I got a phone call from her son a few weeks later, and I thought something had happened. Like it was a very urgent phone call, right? But it was a phone call from excitement. And he basically, in a nutshell, said, Arthur, we've been having this conversation with Mum for years. And she's like, on the way home from your appointment, she's turned and looked at me and said, right, this Friday, we're going to do this. We're going to do this. The house is on the market. It's for sale. They sold it for a fantastic price a few months later, and now they're coming back. So my point is that release, and it all was to do with exactly what you're saying, Jackie. It's not necessarily the numbers, or hey, if you sold your home, did you know you could do this and you could? It wasn't about that. It wasn't about that at all. It was about the connection of their worth to the home.
So you've made that understanding, and certainly I've got a few numbers here, but advisors often struggle to articulate that to their clients, because it's those qualitative factors that it'd be very difficult, I imagine, to put on a website and say, oh, we're going to help you be more confident. But that's actually that sort of underlying drivers. I mean, we looked at confidence to manage your own finances. 72% of people who are advised, have an advisor, will have a much higher level of confidence than people that don't. So what was exciting about doing this research was the things that are often difficult to articulate were actually to put some evidence or some substantiation behind those claims in terms of the importance for a client. And in every instance, confidence you can achieve your financial goals, confident that you'll be able to retire debt-free, your overall situation will be better off. All those sorts of drivers that clients are coming to us, not often outwardly saying that, but we know intrinsically they are motivators. That the end goal as to why you putting a plan in place is the process. What I'm actually trying to achieve is this level of confidence. So it was really exciting to see that come through and be able to very clearly articulate that financial advice is able to deliver that confident level as well.
I think it's interesting because I think, we're applying this, and this is for all of the listeners as well, is we're applying this in a particular situation in financial services. But this sort of stuff can be actually applied in all different, right? It's buying a house, buying a car, buying a TV, buying a boat. It doesn't matter. Like if we really understand what is truly important to that client and we repeat that back to them or talk to them about how we can give them that confidence or alleviate that fear or give them that peace of mind or give them what they want, then that's what keeps clients with us. And I know from yours, so I think for anyone listening, this is important for all industries. If you are advising or selling or connecting with clients around this, then you need to be able to think at that deeper level and making sure that you're connecting with them. I'm working with a client at the moment where there's some DV clients, that domestic violence clients, and the same, right? They want security, they want peace of mind, they want urgency, they want you to know that you are looking after them and you're going to support them in that situation. It's the same, right? They've got those same emotions. So, Jackie, why do clients choose you, and why do clients leave you? Not you, but but why do they? Why do they choose us, and why do they leave us?
Yeah, I think we've sort of explored the why they're choosing us, because we're able to connect with them. We understand, actually, we invest the time to understand from an emotional perspective what their drivers are coming, why they're coming to see us. I'm going to spend a little bit of time talking about why they leave us. And that was some really interesting insights. And you're 100% right. This goes across any industry, regardless of the size of the investment. And of course, the bigger the investment or perception of that investment often will influence the decision making. But number one reason why people leave us is it costs too much for what I got out of it. I.e.,
not value.
I couldn't see the value. Now, that's not on the client, that's on us. That's on us in terms of how we articulate that value. And we've just spent a bit of time talking about confidence and understanding their circumstances, what their drivers are. There's a disconnect because they've paid those fees to you in the past. All of a sudden, their situation, they're no longer seeing that value. Are you not communicating with them? Are you not reinforcing, I guess, what their needs are as they transition through different life stages? The second one, which I thought it sort of really underpins that as well, is my financial situation is less complex than what it used to be. Now, Arthur, you'd probably understand this, and having a mother who's just gone into aged care, it doesn't get any easier when you get older. In fact, those sorts of decisions actually become far more complex because you are dealing with powers of attorney, you're dealing with extended family members who are all bringing their emotions and biases and views into the conversation. Dealing with my aged care and Centrelink, that's no picnic in itself either. So the circumstances change. It doesn't, but the perception to these clients were, well, you helped me out in my 50s or my 60s doing this.
When I wanted to retire.
Yeah, now I'm in my 70s. I don't have that same need. To me, that is the advisor not taking them on the journey, not reinforcing different value and different services that they actually provide as they go along. And I think cost just becomes the easy way for a client to walk away, because they then themselves aren't great at sitting there going, well, I don't see the value anymore, therefore I'm going to move on. No one likes to have those awkward conversations. I simply can't afford it anymore. That's the easy walk away comment.
The interesting part is, and advisors or anyone delivering a service has to then confront themselves as to how well they are doing that, instead of going away and fiddling with their fee structures. So I think what happens is the natural response is, oh, my fee structure is not right. So, well, no, your actual value proposition may not be on point, and nor have you communicated it to be relevant to your clients, versus you're not charging correctly. I think that's another point to consider if someone's in that situation where you've got this tendency to want to play with your fee structure. I'm not saying that you shouldn't, but don't ignore the fact that you actually may not be doing all the other stuff correctly either.
You're 100% right. I mean, another piece, one of the findings was that advised clients, those with a financial advisor, or again, it's extended, Kylie, anyone in where there's a relationship, service relationship in place. What we actually saw is in times of high stress or high anxiety, it was actually more critical to communicate to your clients. Like silence was I guess, a key driver to break that trust relationship. They need to hear from you. And I imagine the current crisis that we've got, fuel, the impact on household budgets, etc. You want that reassurance, and you want it from the trusted partner that you're paying fees to ensure that your financial position is looked after. And I found that quite interesting. I would have thought, I'm paying a financial advisor to look after my affairs, I'll let them worry about it. But what we actually did see was advised clients actually at those critical times wanted to hear more. They wanted to hear more from their trusted relationship professional that they're actually dealing with. So I think that's a good reminder for us all as well, that we it doesn't have to be beautiful, lengthy newsletters. It just has to be that reinforcement of the message that we're here, we're on top of this, we've got it. No need for you to worry.
You know, value proposition comes up a lot for me, especially when I'm working in financial services, where people go, they try and have a generic value proposition. We'll save you tax, we'll do this, we'll do that. Whereas I'm always saying, connect to what is the emotional driver for that client. And that is the value proposition. Is it fear? Is it certainty? Is it, connection when the markets are down? Is it communication? Is it, what is truly important to you as a financial planner to give to them, right? And then that becomes the value, right? Because the value will be different because the emotional drivers are different for each client. So if we can understand and connect with them and pause in those moments, like you said before, Arthur, there was something she was not saying, but I was feeling, right? It's that moment where you really go, this is the value for her. And we can connect with that. And people will pay whatever they pay if they get that value. So it's interesting when you say that they didn't see the value. I think the financial planner has tried to be generic or potentially not connected with what is truly valuable to that client to be able to really articulate the value to them in a way that resonates to that client.
Sort of a little bit of an aside, Kylie, but we have a find an advisor site at Colonial First State, and every advisor can look after a client's portfolio from young age right through to sort of cradle to grave sort of concept. And you can put a generic profile on any of these sites, whether it's ours or others. But what we actually find is the people who get the most referrals from these sites are where they're really specific and they're actually offering something that's quite unique. Like I help widows, I help divorcees, I help women, I help people, migrants come into the country. So you're tapping into some of those real emotional drivers. And I've had feedback from advisors sort of suggesting, well, I do the whole lot. I don't want to sort of really pigeonhole myself into this narrow niche. But the reality is that's, as consumers, what I'm looking for. I don't want the GP approach. I'm looking for the specialist. I'm looking for someone who really understands those circumstances.
We're getting close to time, right? So I'm going to, Arthur, you've got, I know, do you have a question, Arthur? And then we ask every one of our guests, Jackie, if our listeners could take one action from what we've talked about today and put it into action, what would that be? But I know Arthur just had something to say, so I'll let you say it. And then
not really, I don't want to interrupt Jackie's thinking line of
giving us some prep
answer, but she's given us some advance warning. So really not a question, it's probably just a point. Maybe, we've talked about what advisors maybe don't do, but to the defense of advisors and any other professional services provider, doing their best out there and trying their best for their clients and their families is time. And so usually what happens with time pressure, all of these soft activities I sense can be less invested in. And so we need to find ways to get that time so that we can spend the time, in the right areas, while still, like you say, Jackie, moving through the processes that we all carry and responsible for, which is from a compliance perspective. But there's some great developments happening out there in technology space, from platform to AI to so forth. Obviously, there's measures that everyone must take and appreciate that, whether you're a self-licensed or part of a licensee, that there are measures that you must take and consider. But it's very interesting. We did a bit of a stock take in our group, and we are a very young advisor cohort, about 100 advisors, and a large proportion still haven't experimented yet with such solutions, which, in time. But to really get back that time, there's opportunities to do so by exploring these options, because really at the end of the day, if you've got these solutions working in around you, versus, madly writing things down and what did you say again? Can I get that back again? You do that 30 or 40 times in a meeting, you've lost half an hour. Whereas you can talk openly,
efficiency,
and tap into that gold. There's definitely, it's a new dawn approaching, and so I'm really excited about it, because I really enjoy those conversations, and that's why we do what we do. It's to have those deep and meaningful conversations, to get people to have confidence and move forwards. So that's more of my point I wanted to mention and encourage, and just thank everyone for their extraordinary efforts out there in any profession, but in particular ours, the advice profession.
100% right, Arthur. If we're talking AI, but obviously all the tech behind it as well, what the hope would be is that it reduces the workload to allow you to do those tasks that actually have the biggest impact. And what clients really are valuing is that connection with you. So if it means someone's in the background taking the file note electronically, because then it allows you to see your client more frequently or have longer, more meaningful conversations, that's the best outcome. And whether you're talking to a 30-year-old or a 60-year-old, the channel, how you approach them, how you deliver that is nothing. The one thing that never changes, regardless of that, is how they want you to make them feel.
Absolutely.
Where you're at with them, whether you're 30, whether you're 70, it's what I'm looking for in that relationship. And I think, if getting to your point, Kylie, wrapping up, if we stop asking what clients want and listen for why they want it, why are they here, and why are they asking me these sorts of things, and really go to that deeper level, those, I guess, surface reasons as to why I'm leaving, or I know I only need 400,000 for retirement, but I want to have 1.55. Like, these are rational decisions that we're making. We can get through that noise and actually understand what's driving them, and give them a much better outcome apart from a strategy on a page.
And that's what the financial planners love doing. I loved doing that. I loved hearing the why. I loved hearing the stories. That, to me, was the best part of it. The stuff behind the scenes was the hard part for me, because I just wanted to be with the clients, right? And I still love being with my clients now as well.
So are you coming back, Kylie? Like, with all these managers, is this KD?
No, I'm not.
Oh, come on. Come back.
But that's the fun bit, isn't it? Right? We need more financial planners.
We do. Actually, yeah, we do.
We do, don't we? Right. Thank you, Jackie. I love. Where can people find out a little bit more about the research if they want to find out more about the research, or where could they connect with you?
Our 10x, cfs.com.au/10x. We've got if you're interested, you can drop your details in there, and I'll get in touch with everyone. I've got a whole host of research, and when we have spoken about this to different financial advisors, it's actually having some of that evidence to talk about the value of advice. And we're very happy to share that with the broader advice community. So we'd love to hear from anyone.
Beautiful. Thanks, Jackie. Thanks, Arthur. Great to see you again.
Yeah, awesome.
And,
great to meet you, Jackie. Thank you, Kylie. Great sesh. And yes, I'm in my new office, so that
looks
is a real
amazing.
backdrop. Yeah, it's great.
Can you
Was a
do
barber-
a
was a barber
you
shop.
do a
I used to have
social
a
post?
haircut here. So the spirit of the barber is still here. He's at the back. I kept the chair for him at the back, and in my lunch break, I get a bit of a trim off. No, I'm joking.
You're funny. You need to do a walkthrough on your social media. Remember?
Yeah,
when
we'll
you
do
were
that.
doing
Well, we'll get to it. We'll get to it.
Thanks,
Enjoying my
everyone.
conversations too much at the moment.